Alejandra Corbella, and welcome to the Cultura. In this episode, I have my really good friend Gideon. We met in San Francisco, and now he currently lives in Houston, Texas, where he is working on building one of the biggest NFT platforms on the Bitcoin network through the Lightning Network. In this conversation, we talk about NFTs, the value of NFTs, where are we going with NFTs, but we also talk about why NFTs might be better in the Bitcoin network. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the next episode. I know last time we talked, you told me you were building an NFT space, and I was super excited. I think at the time you were going to build it on Ethereum, right? This was like many months ago. And
yes,
And then just recently, right, you told me you're building on the Lightning Network. What happened? Why did you decide to switch? And what were some of the problems that you saw on Ethereum that you said, you know what, I'm going to focus on building on Lightning?
Yeah, so you're right. The fact that many months ago when we spoke, I told you that I was exploring, building an NFT platform, right? And the very interesting thing here is that when we were having that conversation, right, I was looking at different platforms. As someone who has been in the space for some time, I know I'm pretty familiar with most of the chains and like how they're working. And just more later, we're going to talk more about the history of NFTs. But like just looking down, from what I know in the space, I just came to the conclusion that it makes it the best place for you to have your assets. Should be on the Bitcoin blockchain. Essentially, what that means is that we're building like these NFTs where the ownership and then the security is controlled by the Bitcoin network, which is the most secured and the most decentralized network ever that exists on Earth and has never been broken once. And then the reason essentially just goes down to the fact that, when you look at like many other chains now, most NFTs on those chains are actually not secure. Like you think they're secure, but they're not. And so it's more about like, do you want to build something that you're gonna make money quickly, or do you want to build something that can actually have like long-term users and long-term impacts? And so that's why we decided to go that route.
So when you talk about security, I was reading on the article you sent me that you wrote, and I did find that very interesting that most people that are buying, for example, for OpenSea, or a lot of the these networks, right? They'll give you like a hash. If they go down, they might lose their NFTs. How will Bitcoin make this different? Will they have it stored into a ledger, or how will they have access to it? And is there any other way? Let's say I buy an NFT from Nifty Gateway or whatever network I decide to use. Could I put it into a cold wallet, or how will that go into storing this NFT for long term?
Oh yeah, that's actually a very beautiful question, because when it comes to like the whole thing about NFT is ownership, right? You own something and it's yours. And if you own something and it's not with you, then it's not yours. Right. So like, let's say you own something and is on, let's say it's being hosted on maybe Nifty Gateway. So it's like, it's not yours. And so essentially like with the Bitcoin, like the whole thing about Bitcoin is really about ownership, right? Where you have something called client-side validation. So client-side validation is where you literally validate that this thing is yours and you store it inside your phone. So your asset essentially could be in your phone. So it's not anywhere on the block, or like the confirmation that the asset belongs to you is inside your phone. And at the same time, you can do cold wallets where you can store it offline. And I think that is like where the future of digital assets is really going to lie, where people can have true ownership. Because when you talk about the ownership, right, and then storing it on your phone or on your hardware, it's something around censorship resistance. So censorship resistance means that like no one can essentially come and take your coins, or no one can take your asset, right? So that is why, I don't know, maybe if you heard about, there was a time there was this movement in the Bitcoin community, people saying, not your coins, not your own, or something like that, right? And so it's like, it's for more people to have control over their assets, right? And so there are like certain censorship resistant client-side validated wallets where people can use to store their own assets. And so it's like just thinking about NFTs very deeply. It's the NFT space is still very early, because even if you still consider what happened, it's not super early, but it's still early, because the first NFT was actually done on the Bitcoin blockchain in 2012, right? And since then, there have been like different variations. And then, like, it's just more of the fact that, on Earth, nothing is new. So people like seem to be like, moving around and moving around and moving around and copying different things. So, but if you look at the basic first principles and think from first principles, then you would know that, maybe you would come to a conclusion that maybe that this makes more sense, right? I mean, for the use case we're doing art. Art should be a rare asset. Art should be very secured, right? And when we look at like the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin is the rarest asset right now. In fact, Bitcoin itself is a collectible, right? And so just logically, I mean, you would want to put your NFT art, which is a collectible, actually on the Bitcoin blockchain, and then you have maximum security, which is like it's crazy. So it's like, I mean, right now, maybe there is no 51% attack on Ethereum and everything, but like when everything goes into like the proof of stake, there's possibilities that things like that could happen, because it becomes a question of, if you have more money, then you become a validator. So it's like it becomes again the thing that Bitcoin was trying to fight, because Bitcoin essentially is something that is there to help bring in a world where there is like equality, so anyone can set up a node. You can set up your own Bitcoin node today, and it can be part of the community, right? But then with the proof of stake on Ethereum, you have to have 32 ETH. How many people in different parts of the world have 32 ETH? So it's I think like in developing countries, that's not going to work. I think that's not going to work. I mean, people are going to see that, and people are going to like at some point be like, no, like I want to be part of this ecosystem, but I have to have 32 ETH. Really? No, that's not going to work. It's a question of time.
Mm, that's awesome. So, what do you think are some of the challenges? Because there's a reason why most people are building an Ethereum, right? You can just grab Solidity, learn how to use it, and you can build, right? The centralized applications. People are building all types of things in Ethereum. But when we think about Bitcoin, right, we always hear people say, well, it's not possible, it's not scalable, it's too hard. So what are some of the advantages? We already talked about the advantages, but what are some of the disadvantages on building in the Lightning Network or building in Bitcoin? And what are some of the struggles that you're going through right now as you're trying to build on the Lightning Network?
Yeah. So the thing here is, you always have two options, right? There's the easy road and there's the hard road, right? So depending on the one you choose, you get your results, right? So there's like always like the things you have to like give up to get the other things, right? So the Bitcoin network essentially has been there since the first. And why the Bitcoin has never been hacked before is that because it's the way it was built, right? Using like, it was built in a way that it's not Turing complete, in the sense that like it's this programming is strict, so they didn't give so many options on the things that you can do, so that the system is not hacked. So the core Bitcoin system it's like very secure. And now, like what has been happening in the past for some time up till today, which we had a dev call, it's more about like building on top of the Bitcoin network, which is a Lightning network. Essentially, the Lightning network is layer 2 solution, which is going to make more programs to be built on the Bitcoin network and make it more scalable, far more scalable. And so for such things to happen, like the question now is, hey, you have an option of running an NFT on a place where you can make money easily, or you want to like build it on the Bitcoin blockchain and learn the hard things, right? So these are just two different things, right? And so like on the Bitcoin blockchain, till today, it's still hard. In fact, there is no virtual machine on the Bitcoin blockchain. Ethereum has its own EVM, which is a Solidity, right? So it's more about like sacrificing security and some stuff, right? To have to have your stuff on Ethereum. Sorry, on Ethereum, but on the Bitcoin network, I think the reason people are not really doing that is, one, many people don't even know the history. People just hear about NFTs and they're excited they can make money, and they just jump into it and start making money and everything. But at some point, it's everything happens in a cycle, and there's going to be a point where many people in the NFT space are going to be also disappointed because no one is buying their NFTs anymore, right? And then, or maybe the NFTs are getting lost or something like that. So it's like it's an evolution. It's a question of the thing good here is that more people get to hear about it, right? And so there's still good NFTs are going to be there. NFTs are going nowhere. They're going to be like stage 2 NFTs, stage 3 NFTs, and yeah. So that's it.
Okay, okay, okay. So what do you think? So we hear, like you mentioned, right? Right now, everybody's hyping up NFTs, and you hearing artists, people, everybody's trying to create their own NFTs, but people are not. I don't hear a lot from the perspective of the own developers that are creating this platform. So where do you think NFTs are going? Because now you're not only hearing about NFTs on Ethereum, not only Bitcoin, right? You're hearing on just so many networks that are creating their own NFTs. So what do you think is the future of NFTs, especially when we think about like the history of NFTs? We started with Bitcoin, we moved into Ethereum, and now where are we going? What do you think is the future?
I think everything moves around and comes back again to the beginning. It's there's no running away from this. Like if you just like the blockchain space, Bitcoin was the first blockchain, and then eventually, Ethereum came out, and then eventually other chains started coming out. We're trying to be better than Bitcoin or something or Ethereum, etc. So right now there are like more than hundreds of chains out there. Right, anyone I can set up my own blockchain just right now, and so it's a question of after all of that, then what really matters? You go back to the security, right? Where do you want your NFTs to be secure? So I think many chains are going to have their NFTs. And I'm not going to say that like those NFTs are not good or anything. Maybe they are, maybe they are not good. But like from first principles, the best place to keep your NFT would be on the Bitcoin blockchain because you want your asset to be secure. You don't want to make an asset that is existing today and will not exist tomorrow. That's like literally what that doesn't make sense to me. Right. And so it's human nature, right? I believe that people will do things they want to do, make it in different places while it's not possible on Bitcoin yet. So currently, like the NFT development, and then it's still on testnet on the layer 2 solution, RGB. In fact, for the first time in history, I was able to like issue my own fungible tokens on top of the Lightning Network using RGB, which was exciting, right? And these are things that has never been before, right? All the fungible assets has been only on ERC20 before the other chains, made it possible to in their own chains. So I think, my own perspective from being in the space is that the most secure chain and will always be is the Bitcoin blockchain. However, like everything happening in the space is very important because it's a good way to see what actually could work and what could not work. And then when all these experiments has been done, they will all come back to the Bitcoin blockchain. Well, especially things that have to do with assets and identity. Because you like literally it's very decentralized. Anybody on earth can get access to it and support the node and make sure it's working. And and then it's the most secure. Like that's why it's also very strict. So you will not be able to like go below certain layer. Like different things can. Bitcoin system is essentially like layer program in the sense that there's like the core layer, and there'll be like layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, and I think over time it might have up to like layer 7, right? And in layer 7, things might get there might be a hack in layer 7, but layer 1 will always be like what it is, uncrackable, unmovable. Yeah.
So you spoke about RGB, right? The
Yeah.
RGB. So can you speak more about what it is? How does it work? Because we don't hear a lot from Bitcoin developers about NFTs. And in fact, if you go to crypto Twitter, a lot of Bitcoin maxis hate NFTs. They don't understand them. They said, there was this one tweet that to say, "Oh, I'm selling my first tweet," and somebody took a screenshot and say, "I don't need to buy your NFT. I have my own now," and they just took a screenshot, right? So I've seen that sentiment around Twitter, but what are your thoughts on that? And also, how does are people building on Bitcoin right now? You think it's something very new? And how does the RGB
I
work?
mean, it's one is like Bitcoin maxis. They're just looking at how it's more about like thinking. I think from what I understand, the Bitcoin maxis just really much care about like the ecosystem, the decentralized ecosystem, and then they care really about things functioning the right way, right? And many of them don't like other chains. is the way it is, because they think they're all shit chains or shit coins, as they call them, that have no use, and then that eventually everything's going to come back to Bitcoin. I mean, many people think like that. Many people don't think like that. But I mean, the development of NFTs is an idea that makes sense, right? Ownership, non-fungible asset for ownership, right? And it's you're not hearing a lot about it right now because it's not mainstream. It's not mainstream, and so it's going to take some time for it to become mainstream. It's still on the testnet. It's still early days, and like we're working around different things, figuring out the best way to like implement certain things on our platform. Um, uh, so it's still early, but I think that you're gonna give it like 2 years, right? Give it 2 years, you will start hearing more people saying, "Oh, my NFT should be on the Bitcoin blockchain," and it's what people will be saying themselves. And so it's like it's a question of you have to spend your because I come on Clubhouse and then I figured out that like so one day I went to a room in Clubhouse. There were about thousands of people there, and then I came to the stage and the people were talking, and I asked a simple question, and people couldn't really answer, and then I said, that some of these things will be implemented in the Bitcoin network where the NFT is coming back to Bitcoin. And then someone said it's not possible. I was like, what makes you think it's not possible? I invite you to come and read. So you like people just open their mouths and say things that they don't have anything to back it up. And I'm actually amazed at how very few people know things that's happening in the space. But I think it's also okay, right? Because now people are making money and they're happy making money with it, right? Will NFTs come to Bitcoin? Yes, it will come to Bitcoin. It's a question of time, and then other things too. Because like it's not just about having your NFT issued; it's about what can this NFT do, the utility of the NFT, right? And when we talk about the utility of the NFT, that is where like Bitcoin is definitely going to win because of like things like streaming payments. So over Lightning you'll be able to like stream payments to people. So you're like, well, I'm streaming, maybe watching a video, I'm streaming, I'm watching the video, and at the same time I'm streaming payments to you with like almost very little gas fees. So it's like with the same way we're looking into our platform, there should be no gas fee, like because of Lightning fees are very cheap. We'll be able to like make transactions, send things with people. And no matter what people say about NFTs, tell me more. This is my own question to you. Do you think that uh, NFTs will have value if if everyone is making NFT? What would be the value of NFT?
I think that's the question of the year, right? With the NFT hype, the same way with the ICOs, the same way with everything. Like cryptocurrency, like NFTs, only has the value that we give it as a society, right? So if you are always minting, and getting all these NFT outs, then do they really have a price? I think we're gonna see that, like you mentioned, right? All these NFTs are gonna come out. A lot of people are gonna buy them. A lot of people are gonna try to sell them. Some of them won't get bought by anybody. Some of them will get bought by big amounts of money and then be worth nothing. And then some of them might be worth for a really small amount of money and then be worth a lot of money. So I think NFT are very speculative, you know, it's not like it is for sure. It's an investment that you can make. I think for me, I will buy an NFT because it has a sentimental meaning. I believe in the artist, but when thinking about is it gonna make me a lot of money? I think it could, right? But it's speculative. But you're right. Is it are they gonna be all valuable? No. I think a lot of them. I think this year is gonna kick out a lot of like weak minds. All those people that just came in for the money, that were just trying to be rich, they're gonna get cleaned out because they're not going to make all this money. Some of them might make a lot of money, but I think at the end of the day, the people are gonna make the most money is the people that are educated, the people that are making amazing work, and probably the people that also already have that network. Like look at people, right? I think that's how you pronounce
People,
it, like
yeah.
people, right? This guy is known in the digital art space before NFTs were even a thing. And his reputation is just so huge that people are willing to buy his artwork. Once he said NFTs, people were buying like pancakes. And he sold his collection for millions of dollars, right? But this took time. This is not something like you're gonna come in and be a millionaire tomorrow. So I think, like you said, it is going to take time, and only time will tell, right? The strongest will
Yeah,
survive.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's more about like as you just said, having your NFT and you're buying it because of the sentimental value to the artist. So what if next year no one is hosting the art that you bought? It's no longer there. You can't find the art anymore. You only have just a line of code that there's no sentiment to.
Yeah, that's gotta
That
be
would suck.
a little rough for
Yeah.
people, right?
That would,
I think about like you mentioned, right? I think for me, I'm in the investor side. I'm not really in the developer side. Seeing what you said about a lot of people, what if the platform stops working and now your NFT is not longer available? That's going to be a huge thing, especially when thinking about like those again, right? Going back to 2000, 2016, right, where people were buying all these cryptocurrency projects. They were logging in, and there's like now the website doesn't exist. It's giving me an error. What happened with my coins? What happened with my money? Right? It's gonna be the same exact thing with NFTs. And again, right, people are gonna get educated. And then I'm thinking about hacking, right? What if you get like this really expensive NFT, right, that is worth a lot of money, and then it gets hacked, right?
yeah. So you lose your asset.
Right. I mean, everything's so speculative. I don't know the answers, right? That's why I'm asking questions. But yeah, I think that's really, really important. So when building on the Lightning Network, what is the goal? And how do you think you're gonna get there? Because like you said, I hear all like for the longest time I thought building NFTs or building on Bitcoin was really almost impossible, right? From what you hear often, right? I'm not saying that's true. I think it could be possible, right? So what does it take to get there? Because we're not there, right? We are not seeing all these things being built on Bitcoin for a reason. So how long do you think we're gonna get there, and what does it take for us to get there?
Yeah. So the I will start with the word that the impossible, or the phrase I learned, the impossible. It's something no one has done until someone does it. So it's like literally, is anything impossible? Whenever I hear that word, I'm like, okay, what do you mean by impossible? You can say it's very hard to do, right? Maybe it's possible, but then it's almost impossible because like it's almost impossible because it's just can't be done. However, like making things on NFTs and Bitcoin, yeah, it's possible. Like as I told you before, the like it's not essentially when people say making NFT on Bitcoin or making an asset on Bitcoin, right? If you try to put a whole NFT inside a Bitcoin network, it's not going to work because you're going to clog up the system. And so that is, if someone thinks like that, then that is not possible right now. But Bitcoin is designed in a way where you have like your outputs, right? So if you use your partially signed Bitcoin outputs, right? If you use your outputs, and then you can those outputs are managed by the ownership of those outputs are managed by the ownership, and the state are managed by the Bitcoin blockchain. And so essentially you can use that to tie to an asset, right? That's why you have Lightning. So Lightning is building on layer 2 on top of Bitcoin. So essentially, it means playing around with the ownership and the state of the Bitcoin and outputs. And so with that, you can build out like different things, and all those things will be secure. So it's a question of people saying, "Hey, I'm storing Bitcoins for my great grandchildren," right? Why? Because you know that Bitcoin will be there because of the infrastructure and how decentralized it is. So the same way, if you tie your assets to those outputs, and then those assets are inside a decentralized storage. Now, essentially, what do you have? You have an asset that can be there for a long time, for a lifetime. And so like that's how this is being designed. And I think that it's going to take some time before you find the first digital and find NFTs on Bitcoin. I think it might not be super far off. It might be a question of few months, and then we'll be able to have that going. Because we're looking forward to seeing what happens sometime between summer and fall. And so we're building our platform and then getting ready for that.
Do you want to speak a little bit about your platform for people that are interested on the work that you're doing? What is the best way to learn about what you're doing? And also, if you want to share your like Twitter handles or Clubhouse, anything of that sort, just so people know where to find you in the future, right? Because this is something that could happen anytime, right? You're building on it, you're working really hard. So if you want to explain for everybody what you're doing, what you're working on, what you're allowed to say, and then how can people contact you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So you can follow our Twitter at LV DiBA, DIBA. So the platform is called DiBA. DiBA essentially it means digital arts on Bitcoin. So it's a place where you can we're going to like work only with very verified artists, but then we'll be working with like curators and then museums and then galleries, so that these people can actually verify artists who are coming to mint NFTs on our platform. And so it's a place where you can get your drops. It's just going to be like more of drop focused. And then we'll be doing like a bunch of stuff when we launch the platform for Genesis, which is going to be very interesting. Because I mean, in DiBA, we are more really thinking about, you people, right? Because one thing is that codes can make things very secure, etc. But then it's Bitcoin is about like bringing emancipation and freeing people, right? And bringing this freedom. And so it's something that we believe much in DiBA. And as you can see, or you can maybe hear, DiBA sounds like a feminine name. So it's the queen energy, right? And so it's what we stand for. And so it's a question of like, is how do we like build this community of people who really love arts and want to get like arts assets, right? I had this call with a fund. So this fund, they want to buy NFTs, but they don't buy the existing NFTs because they think something is fundamentally wrong, because hey, you can actually lose your assets. And so this is something that is very, very vital. Like if you look at the NFT world, how many funds are really buying NFTs? Do you know of any like existing fund that's buying NFT apart from people buying NFT and playing around with each other? So this is just a very core thing that people really do a lot of research to go in. And so you can follow us on LV DiBA on Twitter, and then our website is LoveDiBA, LOVE and then from there you can find my personal Twitter. And so I will also share the link with you so that you can share with everybody. Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It was a very interesting conversation.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm super excited. Thank you for taking the time.